Perfect.
Well, I'm good to go.
Yeah, you get to go.
I don't get a command like start. Sit. Okay. How was dinner? That was kind of slim pickings, but it was still, I'm grateful to eat. But I got my grilled cheese sandwich. Hopefully you got something good, turkey or whatever. So what did you get out of this little exercise? The different factors can, well, let's just hear it from you. What do you think? What did you learn from this particular example here? The takeaway, if you had to say.
The good way to practice, like, and understand more of the percentiles. Like,
you got a better understanding of percentiles in
Yeah.
general. Good. That's good. Like 75% means that's high, and 25% means low. People like to divide data. It's like a lot of research you might see. They might divide the data into quartiles. Like the 25th is the last, the bottom quartile. The 75th is the top quartile, and in between is the two middle ones. Yeah, good. Good. Anybody else? What did you learn of this? What's the takeaway from this, as far as you're concerned? Yeah.
Income and obesity are probably correlated somehow.
Probably to some extent, yeah. Well, maybe not though. Maybe not. It depends. It could be, very possibly. But both of them are definitely related to functional. So probably through they probably are related to each other. They didn't look at it that way. The way the data was set up here, they didn't look at that. But I do agree with you that there very likely is a correlation between the two in the real world. That just wasn't examined here. But definitely both of them are related to the functional living, functional whatever you call it. All right, very good. Okay, so let's see what I have next for you. You know what we're gonna do? So I think we're gonna take the fast track here because we're a little behind, and I feel like you folks are maybe a little bit more ahead of the game than last year. I feel like there was some people who are newer who appreciated some of the stuff I covered going over Excel. Well, how many of you? I mean, one thing I could do is just how many people are pretty familiar with Excel? How many? You could just be honest and how many people are completely unfamiliar with Excel? My God, I don't even know what that is. Okay. I mean, I can go over some basic things. One thing about Excel is that it's free for everybody. Or not free, but, it probably comes with a package that you have on your computer anyways, along with Word and PowerPoint. So, one thing I would have had you do, which we don't need to spend time doing it here, is I could have had you do the 16 personalities test. And I would say just for your own benefit, because you have these slides, right? I think this is personally cool to do on your own. I took it myself, just not for the sake of statistics at all. I took it and found out, you get scored on introversion, extroversion, like these 4 different dimensions. Introversion, extroversion is one, and then I forget the other 3. Intuitive and sensitive. Okay, so some of you know about it. Okay, and the other one's thinking and perceiving. Huh? Thinking and perceiving, and the other one's, you have to be a finisher or a person who just kind of floats around. Judging and non-judging, who knows what. Judging and whatever. And I took this test myself a few years ago, and I found it pretty useful in the sense that it basically told me I wanted to be an advisor of some sort or a massage therapist, one of you, okay? I like one-on-one relationships and that kind of thing. So I was like, oh, it makes sense that I like the job I have now. So, because you're in a formative stage of your career, that could be a useful one to go and just take and see what it looks like. And then you could also know your areas of improvement and why you don't get along with certain personalities as much as others. And I kind of got, and when I took it for me, I was like, man, I don't get along with those people. And this is why. And I always saw my point of view before. And I was like, oh, yeah, they have a point of view too. And I'm whatever to them, So I would really recommend it. I have some of my students who, especially the ones who are a little uncertain about their career choice or whatever. But I think even though you're certain, I mean, gosh, you're in grad school, so I think you know what you're going to do. But I found it useful for even like certain personality types, like who I get along with better, because then you might have a supervisor who has a conflicting personality with you, and then you could understand their point of view from this, I think. And then people you get along with gravitate towards more easily or whatever. So I think it's worth you doing, just as a side note. I was originally going to have you take this so that we can get the data and then, you know, not to rate you or evaluate you, but to just enter it into Excel and then to create some charts and all that stuff. But I'm thinking that perhaps since we did that stats talk, we don't need to do that. We want to get out of here in an hour or so. But what I will say is, let's say that you don't have a fancy software, or maybe you have access to it in graduate school, but then afterwards, you know, like for example, SPSS, a license I think is at least $1,000 for an individual license. And so nobody's going to pay for that on their own, I don't think, unless you work for a company that automatically has it anyways. So, you know, there's still things you could do on Excel. All right, you could definitely do graphs, and we'll talk about infographics in a little while, just a little bit. And you could do those too. Those are very useful to have, and those are becoming more popular, more and more popular as time goes on. But if you, let's say you were to organize a database, so let's say you work at a place where, no, I don't have access to SPSS, which I had in graduate school, but I still want to collect data and perhaps summarize it in a useful way. The way to do it is to do it in Excel. And what happens is the way you organize data is every person, this is the typical way at least, the standard way, every person represents one row and all their data. So every person is one row. And then every variable is one column, like that. Okay, so that's something kind of useful to know. The very first row would be your variable names. And the thing is, if one day, woohoo, I have access to SPSS, SPSS can import this Excel database and open it. You can open it up in SPSS. So that's a nice thing. And even with Excel, has anybody done some basic calculations in Excel? Who's done some basic, yeah? I just show of hands. How many have not done anything in Excel like that, calculation-wise? Like that? Be honest. Okay, I could just do a little brief kind of looky look. And if anything, it's going to be a good reminder for a few of you. So if I were to function to perform calculations, blah, 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 final answer, blah, blah, blah. How many of you have done graphs in Excel? Anybody done graphs in Excel? How many have not done graphs in Excel? Okay, some of you are saying, no, I haven't. Okay, that's fine. No judging here. So I got some data and blah, 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 graphing. Okay, so we talked about graphs over here, and this is how you can depict them in Excel. So let me escape. Let me go to Excel. Where's my little minimizer? Okay. I'm always afraid of doing something horrible. Well, you know what I did? I had this assessment report due from my office on Sunday night or Monday, and then I just kind of deleted something. But then I thought I could undo it. And it so happens I wrote a whole bunch of stuff in a field that I couldn't undo my delete. Why am I going to Fullerton? I think I'm checking my email. What am I doing? I'm going to Excel. So what am I? Okay, there you go. It's too late. You know, late dinner and your body's saying, it's time to just chill and watch CNN and see how upset the world is. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's just blank word here. And so let's say I put in, you know, name. Let's just say I did introversion. Those are the different scores. Perception, you know, I'm thinking of those scales. Percept. What else? Here. Judging. Judge. Oh. Okay, and then I just put some names. And then I put intro. Put Taiwan. Oops. And so notice these are people, 4 people, and 3 variables, basically. Usually in your data set, you're going to have some sort of ID number. When I collect data, what I usually do is, what do I do? Oh, like when you're collecting data on surveys, this is some useful tip for you. When you're collecting data on surveys, let's say you have paper and pencil surveys, what I would do is, even if you don't need, just for record keeping, what I would do is put an ID number on the surveys before you hand them out. So, for example, let's say I have a stack of 100 surveys I'm going to give to 100 participants. Before I even give them out, I put a 1 on the first survey, 2, 3, 4, to 100. And then I give them out, I collect them. Even if you don't need to, collect data on them again to track it and all that stuff, I just put the numbers on, I enter my data, and then, put everything in. And I give ID numbers of 1, 2, 3, etc. because let's say I really messed up. It's so easy to mess up on a field and you put something in the wrong place. And so if you want to be able to retrieve the data, that way, oh, that was participant number 33. I can go back to the survey, pick it out, and like see what the heck I did wrong, right? And then enter it back in. So I would do that even if you don't have to go back and collect data on the same person. I would still put ID numbers on your surveys. When you do longitudinal surveys, like so you have to do a pre and a post on the same people, you have to make sure to get a unique identifier number for each one, and you have to have maybe an Excel sheet where you say, Jane Doe is participant number 56, and then when you see Jane Doe the second time, you give her the one that says 56 on it. It makes sense that you're able to add on her data, because you have to make sure that the data line up. And so like you would still have, for example, 1 row of data here for Jane Doe, and this might be like the pre-intro, pre-percept, pre-judge, and then at the end, and then, when I collect more data, then I would keep going and go post, post precept, post judge, right? So 1 line of data would be still 1 person, multiple rows is how I would typically organize it. If you did it any other way, it could be a dang mess, okay? I mean, there's other ways to do it, and you can undo it, fix it, transpose it, whatever. But that's the easiest thing to do if you're collecting longitudinal data, just so you know to be mindful of. Because if you don't do that and you're saying, well, they're going to come back, you still have to match it up correctly. Okay, so with that said, some basic things in case, the main go-to place for any kind of analyses would be this fx key function. So it's a function key. And so let's say I want to do a mean score for this group. I go like function, and I'll do average. And there's other things too, most recently used, but then there's all these other things. Usually whatever you need would be under all, I guess, or statistical, basically. So I'll just do the basic average. And you click OK. And then what you do is you highlight the numbers that you want to conduct the average for, right? And then you click OK, and there it goes, voila. So you always have to just pick a field that's somewhere adjacent to what you want to calculate the average for. And so that's one thing you could do. You could do some basic calculations that way. I'm sure there's ways to do some inferential tests too, which I haven't done myself before on Excel. But I have done graphs. And so let's say, what do I want to do? I want to graph. Okay. So I want to graph these people. I want to graph, I don't know, do a graph. So what you do is you highlight the data that you want to graph. Well, let's just do, I could even use some data. You know what we could do? Have you done bar charts to compare like this group to this group? Do you want to do like a, so let's do the 4 groups. So was it, didn't we have obese, non-obese, obese? Right? Healthy? You could do your homework, the homework stuff you did. And then let's go low, high, right? For income. And what's the years for obese? So the year of functional mobility for that 50th percentile, what was the year for that one, for that group, low and obese? 60? Low income obese is 60, and then for healthy low would be, was it 75 or something? 75? Was it something else? 75. And then for high healthy was like 88, right? And then how about for high obese? 70. So let's say I wanted to depict this. So basically I have 4 groups. And the way, okay, so first of all, I just did raw data like that. So that's one way you can use Excel to just create some raw data and put it in to create means and frequencies and percentages and all that stuff. But in other cases, let's say I did my analyses in SPSS or whatever fancy dancy thing I did. But I want to do a more customized graph, or I just like Excel graphs. So what I would do is exactly how I did it. Let's say I wanted to have like a bar chart of 4 groups and I wanted to compare. I would organize the data like that. So, you might even have like 4 groups in this for the independent variable, 4 groups for the other independent variable, and then, whatever. But and here it's just 2 by 2, which is 4. So if I want to do a graph on that, I just highlight it like this. Have you ever done this kind of graph before? No? Okay, good. So what I do is I highlight it, and then I click on data, and then, maybe not. Oh, insert table. Okay, rely on memory. Oh, I think I want this one. Yeah, probably. I think. Oh yeah, 3D. What is it? Mustard. Ah! So remember. There you go. So you could do that. And so then you can, this is kind of cool. So you have the low and the high socioeconomic status of the obese group. And so there's this basic main effect of income, right? As well as, it seems like the same kind of pattern happens, that if you're low versus high, right? High socioeconomic status you're better off, aren't you? Right? So the trend is the same. When it comes to obese versus healthy, well, healthy looks a little tad better off no matter where so I would say there's no interaction effects as much, right? So the trend is kind of the same for both groups of people, but that's nice little bar chart. You can get Excel to do the confidence interval as well for this state. Well, we don't have standard deviation and stuff. You'd have to have raw data. So this is not raw data, by the way, because raw data would be like all the participants. And if I had that, then I could create the standard deviation, little error bars, which is for the confidence interval. But what you could do with this, then you could, put in a nice title, blah, 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 comparison of blah, 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 blah. Over here on the y-axis, you could put age of onset or whatever, that kind of thing. So you could fancy it up pretty nice. So that's how you do it. So any questions about creating a graph in Excel? So you can use it to enter raw data. You can use it to summarize data. If you have the data at hand that you calculated somewhere else. Which I often do, especially for like PowerPoint presentations. That kind of thing comes out nice. I could change the colors, I could change the legends, and that kind of thing. An important thing about graphs when you do this kind of stuff, always good to start at 0 at the bottom. Because when you start at some other number, it makes the disparities between the groups look bigger. It's just the number, it's like, oh. So that's one thing people can do to make things look more impressive than they really are, by the way. So always start at 0. Because you're basically shortening the graph otherwise, and then so the differences look bigger. So there's any questions about that? No? Okay. So just and that takes us to, let's see. But I can go back here. Okay, and then I could go to Benson Marathon, slideshow, and then I could go clicky click, go right back here. Let's see. That. Okay, this is what I do to my daughter. I go like, what's 16 minus 9? So I'm going to say, when do you use a t-test? Do you know after your, when you do what? You use a t-test when you are comparing two means. That's right. Oh, good job. Okay. All right. I have to confess, I have more patience with you guys than I do with her. I think that I can't help it. I think most people have that issue too. Okay, so actually this is cool because in the last slide I give you here, the data is organized such that you could see kind of like what I did, right? The way I put the data in. You have the three groups: patrol, cell phone, hotel. On I don't know what the outcomes are, but there they are. On whatever the outcome is. Okay. Now we're at the interpreting journal. Oh, so I get to sit back and you get to figure this out. All right. 4 groups of 2 to 3 students each. Each group will be assigned to one article to read through. From the article, please answer the following questions. Who is the target population? What was the sample? How many and who? In layman terms, what were the results? And what were the implications of the findings? Of course, I mean, you could cheat and just give the abstract, of course, right? But in your own opinion, what are the implications? But what I want you to do is read through the article, not just, I mean, the abstract is a good place to get a synopsis of the, but I want you to try to dig a little deeper. And what I want you to work in, I think there's 4 articles, so there's plenty of you. All right, so it's 5. Yeah. And what you can do is just kind of read through it together, and some of the statistics may be familiar to you, some of them may not. I have to admit I haven't looked at this since last year. And then your job is to present as a group what you found so that you can teach the group, even though they didn't do your assigned article. You should be able to tell everybody, hey, what's the gist of this article? So we could practice. And of course, you can we can work on this together, troubleshoot if that becomes, like, oh my God, I don't know what this means. I don't remember the names of the articles. Let's see, who has their computers up? And you could say, well, here, this is one group here. It seems like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which article do you want? Just pick one. Article 1, what is it called?
Is that in the slide after or before this?
There's no slide. It should be like a PDF file, right?
Okay.
See PDF files, there's like 4 different PDFs. You see them?
Oh yeah, there's Evans, Iwamoto, Peterson, and
Yeah, so Evans right here. Okay, Evans for group 1 over here. Yeah.
yeah, no, which one? Which one is that spelling? Iwamoto.
So you guys could have Evans and then Iwamoto right here.
We're taking Shaws. However you say it. The Shaws.
Shows, okay, Shows.
That's the last one.
Evans.
Yeah.
You can go, yeah, I think that'd be great if you go there. And then, what do you want? There's 2 left, Iwamoto or something else.
Whatever you said.
Iwamoto. And you're something left over, whatever that is.
Yeah.
The last one. Peterson, okay. So go ahead and start to talk. And make sure to answer these questions here.
Yeah.
Right?
That are in the agenda. Oh, no, there's two. So one and two plus 181. Yes.
No, it says in February.
Yeah. Because the other two was not included in the study.
So, I'm confused. I think Brandon's calculation. What's the sample? Maybe like $3,000 and then that, like the results. I could hear the answer. Or
So. Kind of going to the, like, available. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I said.
How many more minutes do you think you need? 5?
What's the question? So So after like what, 5 minutes, do we talk with each other in the group? And
Or
then come
talk
up
to
with
the group, to talk to the class. I mean, I'm thinking that you're talking to each other now.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, not yet. Yeah.
So I read it for there was this issue going on in 1996. I'm guessing they incorporated that.
So that's that. Yeah.
It was reliability of software.
Oh, yeah.
And then result that we're drawing.
Oh, no, you're right here. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not on text. I don't care.
They all talking
No, I went to your university. Yeah, but it wasn't your house. Not everybody goes to the house. Oh, yeah. As well as the rest. That's only in Georgia. Oh, you already. So the second,
Yeah.
The presentation, I wrote the question for reliability of software. And it's possible that the BMI, they have one in their provider, so they report to their rating.
Yeah, I'm like, if it's like, are you drinking alcohol? I feel like, no, but you know, on Friday night.
But they don't go out. I didn't like do that.
No, they just,
It was like,
it was a question. What the fuck is this happening? I don't know, I'm here tonight.
Having done like that, like.
Our BMI is like, comes from. Yeah.
They could just tell you, I'm pretty sure they don't have a link. That's why I said
That's not.
Oh,
Yeah, I think that's why they were not self-reported.
Oh, yeah, self-reported.
Yeah.
So they,
What do you think, 3 minutes?
it wasn't like they didn't use like a blood test or like. I think they used like some sort of, if they if that home, yeah. Like a blood test or the bad.
Pretty much saying that, oh, we have to present for the
Sunday morning is contact inside your meetings.
They could have done like randomized, I've seen it with like teenagers, so they have to choose something. So then if they're hard to use and yeah. So your color, like random.
I know.
I think Anderson and then like I just started here. Yeah.
So, let's say she's
They took, yeah. That can also depend on the conference. Yeah, so
Oh, it doesn't know.
We're not open about like.
Okay, I think we should start, and what we're gonna do, even if you didn't get your act fully together, we could talk about the challenges you had, and maybe we could answer them. And I'm the blind one, because you got access to it, I don't, but I could maybe look at your, I could steal a look at somebody's computer if I need to, I probably do. But anyways, we could start, well, they had the most time, because technically I gave them their, right? But then one of these groups got to pick. They get,
We got to
you got that. Okay, this group will go first. What's your article so we can pull it up? Everybody else can pull it up too.
Okay, the article is called Alcohol Segregated and Brief Intervention in a College Student Health Center, a randomized controlled trial.
So who's the author, first author?
James.
The
one that starts with S. It's
Okay.
SCH.
Look at the SCH article. You can pull it up on your computer. The SCH article,
2009.
2009. Okay, so everybody got to that? Okay, so let's answer the questions. Who is the target population, would you say, in your case? Were you able to identify? College students. What country?
Florida.
Florida, public or private?
It was public.
Public,
Yes.
all public schools. Okay, what was the sample size? Okay, no, that's not too big, not too small, okay. How many and who? Okay, ethnically diverse?
Yeah.
In what sense? Like what was the breakdown like? 52% females. That's okay, don't worry about that. What are some, well anyways,
There's white, black, Hispanic, American, Indian, Asian, white.
majority are white, like what?
Like 140.
77%.
And then there's like 8 blacks and then Hispanic 23, and then Asian 0. Wait, no, 3, and then the calendar 1.
Okay, good to know. All right. All right, what else? Oh, you know what? I have a question for you. What if you have people with missing data? Because that's likely to happen in any study you do. So let's say you have missing data on a few of the variable. What does that mean? Do you have to kick them out? You can't use them for your analyses or what?
I guess it depends on what.
Yeah, so what happens for inferential statistics? So let's say they didn't, for the inferential statistics, you have to put in your independent variable and dependent variable. If they're missing one or the other, it's going to automatically kick them out for those analyses anyways. For the descriptive statistics, what you could do is always present the valid percent, which is the people who actually answered the question. That's fine. No big deal. That happens. So we talked about the sample, how many and who. So we kind of have a flavor for who they are. They're probably kind of young. They're probably, 20-somethings?
They're high risk.
High-risk drinkers. Oh, how do they define high-risk drinkers?
They had a set of there was like thousands of students that were surveyed, but they only 363 were qualified.
Met the criteria who.
Yeah, they had a questionnaire for that.
Okay, because they really like to drink. Okay. So that was a subsample from a larger data set. So they had access to a larger one. Did they complete it online or paper and pencil or? Doesn't matter. I'm just curious.
They did the basic test, which was brief off screening and information for college student test.
Okay.
And they did a follow-up.
They did a follow-up.
Yeah.
So you had 2 ways of data to look at. Okay. So what was the results in layman's terms? What did you get out of it that you could tell the group about it?
That they demonstrated that BMI delivered by providers within a student health center is effective in reducing negative alcohol behavior associated funds among college students string for high-risk drinking.
That's a discussion sec piece. In terms of findings, like this group is, this group was more likely to do this, or, this was correlated with this, or anything like that.
There was significant reduction in alcohol consumption among the people who were in the.
Oh, so what's an intervention study?
Yeah.
Ah, so that's a study design, okay, so it's a study design. How many groups were there? Two groups. So what did the control group do, nothing? Or were they in something else? So did they have the control group intervention, right, maybe something like that? And then pre and post?
Yeah, this is baseline, and then a 3 month, and then a 6 month, and a 9 month.
Oh gosh, okay, baseline, 3, 6, 9, 12?
Yeah.
6, 9, much more complicated, right? So baseline, so it looks something like this, 3, 6, 9, 12, and what was the outcome?
The intervention was.
What was the outcome? So this is a treatment. When I'm saying outcome, I'm sorry, the dependent variable. So this is the independent variable, right? The group assignment. And I'm guessing the dependent variable is what?
The alcohol consumption.
So it's like a continuous variable, like how much they drink afterwards?
Yeah.
Okay, so alcohol. Something continuous, sounds like. Right, maybe? And so do you have some graphs that look like this? Like supposedly it probably should go like this, right? Hopefully,
It's
maybe? Yeah. And then maybe if the intervention is even better, then maybe they'll even, you know, so it could be, you know, so what did you find out? So maybe they're like this. You know, if the two lines look the same, it would be that the groups were kind of had similar trajectories on the outcome, and it wouldn't seem like the intervention did any much better than the control. So what did you find? Which group did better, intervention or control group?
Intervention.
Intervention, just so did they have sharper decreases over time? Is that what happened? And then they had some nice trends that they showed with a line or something like that?
They didn't show line, it was by percentage.
Okay, percentages, okay, sounds good. And so they did better relative to the control group. What kind of tests did they do? What kind of statistical test? What was the name of what they ran? Did they say?
What, like a alcohol screening test type of thing?
No,
Or
just statistical test.
The SPSS.
SPSS is the name of the statistical software they used. Anybody else who, you know, if you just happen to be looking, you could say, you could chime in and help.
Chi-square,
A lifeline, it's a lifeline, no, chi-square.
chi-square,
To look at the intervention effect, probably not, no? It's the.
oh, S.
SEH. Baseline demographic data. It's not table one. Table one's the demographics.
Is it the repeated measures analysis?
Ah, yes. If repeated measures ANOVA sounds right. So, okay, so in this case, the analyses that were run, I mean, I could just say based on what you're saying, yes, it's going to be a repeated measures ANOVA that would tell you. Repeated measures ANOVA is looking at, it's ANOVA, remember you're comparing multiple groups over, and with repeated measures, you could compare groups over multiple time points. So it's basically looking at, does this group have a different trend over time than this group? So it can handle longitudinal data and looking at the trend over time across, and you could have 5 waves, 10 waves of data, 2 waves of data. You could use repeated measures ANOVA. Does the mean change for this group differently than for this group? So both groups changed in their means over time, right? Or maybe they didn't, I don't know. But whatever it is, a treatment group and the control group were different from each other on their trajectories over time. So you could run a repeated measures ANOVA. Did you see p-values? Did they report p-values? Good. What kind of p-value number did you see? For the repeated measures ANOVA?
They, like the,
Should say p.
is it trend P and? look
Yeah,
P?
trend
Is
p,
that it?
trend p. So p would be for the trend.
0.018 and 0.006.
Okay, so all pretty well under 0.05. So it's all around like 0.01, kind of 0.02. Very good. In your own opinion, what are the implications? So not reading off what they say, you would say this intervention was worth the money. It sounds like it, right? Because if the groups were the same, if they could both improve on their own without an intervention, let's say they both had the similar trajectories, you basically say, well, don't spend the money because they will just sober up on their own. But no, we didn't find that, did we? We found that it's worth putting the effort into the, very good. Okay, any questions about this particular article? Any challenges you came across?
I was like kind of looking for the graph, but because it was all number and like percentage, like it was really hard. Like if we had some kind of like visual as a like kind of like a
A
graph,
graph?
it would have been a lot easier to just kind of find. what
I
we-
agree. I think for this kind of data, usually a graph would be preferable.
Yeah.
Some people are numbers oriented, and if you give me the numbers, I say, oh, I see the numbers, oh. But not as many people, I agree. I think usually graphs would be better to show, like what I tried to do basically.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't do that.
Right.
Okay, that's good. Anybody else have anything to say about the article? Do you feel a little more confident looking at an article now, or you're like, oh, dang. Yeah, you just get your feet wet. And we'll do more of this when I'm here next, whenever that is, I can't remember. But you only get an hour and a half with me next time. So what's that? You're like, yay, okay. All right, so what else? The research. Maybe I don't have to. Oh, here it is. Okay, so next group, who wants to go next? I'm not that mean. Come on. And it's almost 9, so you want to hurry up. I know you do. Who's next? I'm gonna pick right here. All right. So you got the what group? The Evans? Evans. So now we're on the Evans article. All right, so tell me about the target population.
Asian American and Pacific Islander.
Oh, so they were strictly Asian American Pacific Islander, huh? All of them?
There was 2 groups for their samples. So one was called the AAPI category for the whole Asian and Pacific Islander. And then that one was a sample size of 298.
Okay.
Then they also had a group 2 that was non-AAPI category.
So
and it
everybody else?
included, everything else except Hispanic. Wait, yes, it did include Hispanics.
Okay.
So it was pretty much everything else for group 2. And from what we understood in the intro paragraphs, it was because one of the questions was to compare the differences between
Okay.
the participants.
And so what did the participants look like? Were they old, young? Were they students? Were they what? Oh? What did they look like? So that's always an important first thing. You have AAPI.
So the mean age was 32.8.
Okay, so they were adults. They're kind of like not young, super young, okay. What were they being compared on?
Like for the 2.
So there was a lot of outcomes you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
The table, I think it's 2 pages worth. So it was more of the problem of severity of like alcohol, drugs, employment, all these factors. But then there was also substance abuse and treatment history. There was also criminal justice system interactions, and then family social relationships, medical and mental health status.
So they just wanted to compare 2 ethnic groups on those things, period.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And what did you find?
From the results area, it said that most of the factors that they took into account, they were not statistically significant. There was a lot of similarities between the 2. There was one particular, maybe 2 things that were only more prominent, you can say, in the AAPI group.
Oh,
But
which is?
for
So what kind of tests did you see being run? What kind of inferential tests were run?
there was the chi-square.
Chi-square was quite a bit of it? Okay. So chi-square, you can compare the 2 groups on percentages of answers, right? Okay. And so what was one of them that they were different on? Alcohol? Alcohol what?
Non-API got a higher percentage of alcohol.
Okay. Alcohol percentage. So instead of like a mean number, we have alcohol use percentage, and so non-AAPI was higher than AAPI. Something to that effect.
Another one was the AAPI also reported fewer drug-related arrests.
Okay, so again, that's another example of chi-square. So AAPI versus non-AAPI, so the ethnic group differences on percentage of arrests. So either you've been arrested or you haven't been arrested. Okay, very good. And so that lends itself to chi-square. That's a major finding. What are the implications as far as you're concerned?
Study, they're using it how they can, like service utilization. So how can they take this information and provide better health services?
Targeting non-AAPIs? Or?
Right.
Okay, so what did they say basically?
We talked about how family was could impact whether they seek treatment or like the desire of them wanting to have some sort of intervention.
Okay.
We talked about that and
I think, yeah, so they thought that families were, because they thought, for example, methamphetamine and injection, and because they inject the meth in their body, they are more susceptible for AIDS and other diseases.
Okay, infectious diseases.
Infectious, yeah. And they say that API were less, even if they have the disease or like they have the health problem, they were like less likely to seek treatment because of their family, traditions and like involvement were not there.
Okay, got it. Good. And that's a common trend with the AAPIs, I've noticed with the research we've done. So quick question, just reading through the article, did you find like, oh, this is where I can find measures? You feel like, oh, this is, like measures mean, oh, if I wanted to, like you're talking about number of arrests and other kind of variables you were looking at, you could find them, right, in the method section? Okay, good. And they have the source that you could go find the original, all that sort of stuff. Good. So let's go with this group. So what was which article? Iwamoto?
Yes.
Iwamoto. Okay, so who is the target population there? All Asian American women. College women. Okay, so very specific sample of people, right? Little subgroup. Some groups were more broad than others, but this is a very focused subgroup of college, undergraduate Asian women. Okay, and
Sample was 167 Asian American women.
okay.
They spoke about the Chinese, Indian, 27 Chinese, 18 other Asian American.
Okay, so of different ethnicities within Asian. Okay, sample. What were the results? What were they trying to look at? What did they find? Is it a big hodgepodge?
We're trying to find a gap between Asian American college women, college, and their risk factors for substance abuse and depressive symptoms, because a lot of the literature that was out there was mostly concentrated on white college students.
Okay.
And so they were trying to see if there was if there was a gap, or if what was perceived as the Asian American culture of them being really high in their academics was found in their research, but they actually found out that.
So they found out. So what did they find? They found that
there are risks for substance use among Asian college students.
So if I said what's the independent variable, dependent variable, what would it be? Can you tell what was a predictor? Was it ethnic group differences or
One that was like perceived pure substance use.
perceived what?
Yeah, perceived pure substance.
Perceived substance use of others? Like
Yeah, of their peer.
like social norms.
Yeah.
Social norms. Okay.
Or their peer group.
Okay. Right. Norms of their group. Okay. Uh-huh.
And then their actual use of alcohol. And
Uh-huh.
then they also did,
Was that like a correlation or what was it?
so.
Okay. And so maybe actual use, something like that. I give you a harder one.
They were also looking at other.
Well, yeah, because they looked at a lot of.
They looked at
there was-
There was a
Sure.
lot of factors.
They also looked at binge drinking, marijuana use.
Was there a main independent variable throughout the whole thing, or a main dependent variable throughout the whole thing, or are they just looking at the whole hodgepodge of stuff?
They were looking at.
Or was there a theory they were trying to like model?
Yeah, so he said that they, well, one of their theories was, or like one of their, I guess, hypothesis was that, that the Asian values, if they had like higher values, they would be less likely to, engage in like substance use.
Okay, so like the dependent variables had to do with use, and the independent variables had to do like with some attitudes, behaviors, kind of thing. Okay, got it. Okay, yeah, that's fine. And so, what were they running correlations, or did they? What's the name of the things that they ran for inferential statistics?
I believe they ran the chi-square.
Could be, possibly, if they categorize people as yes, I have norms about this, and no, I do not, or actual use. Okay. Are they correlations?
Yeah.
Say correlations between two continuous variables? Okay, okay. And what are some findings you got? So correlation is when they're both continuous, all right? And so what was the main gist of it? Okay, let's go to the abstract and say, what did they say? Well, if you had to take away anything from this article, what would you say?
That they have peers that were participating in these behaviors.
Or at least they thought they did,
They're more likely to
do it. So the social influence is a big deal among these Asian American women. Okay, got it. Okay, you know what? So you have some assignments to do, or in the upcoming week for the articles, right? No? So you could always send me an email if you have questions about interpreting them, because it's not easy, to start off. Yeah, besides just going by what they just write. So, but we'd want to be able to interpret the graphs or interpret the tables a little bit. Okay, last group, we'll talk for a few minutes, and then we'll move on to infographics. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
We had the Peterson article.
Okay, Peterson,
Peterson.
Uh-huh.
And the sample size was 442 Asian American young adults,
Okay,
and they were surveyed in two different West Coast universities.
okay,
It was two West Coast universities, one large public and one small size private.
okay, awesome. And what did they find?
So they were examining the relationship between collective self-esteem, which is like the volume one places on being part of a collective group, a culturalization, which is like assimilation, and alcohol-related consequences. So
Okay.
how those two factors associated with alcohol are usage consequences.
So basically how cultural values intersect with alcohol use, basically, something to that effect. Uh-huh. And they found, so that, and let me guess, correlation? Oh, okay. So regression is, just so you know, regression is basically kind of like correlation, but you account for multiple variables where you have one continuous dependent variable for regression, but then when you could put in multiple predictors, it could be, cultural things. So the outcome sounds like some sort of substance abuse sort of continuous variable, and the predictors were something that, maybe a few variables with culture. Like, for example, if I was going to estimate, if I was going to do a regression model of house prices, what are some things that would predict house prices? Square footage, swimming pool or no swimming pool, school district you're in. So then you could put all those in and you could find out which one of these independent variables is a stronger predictor of the outcome than the other. So which one were the stronger predictors of the outcome? Outcome meaning the dependent variable.
Self-esteem.
Self what?
Self-esteem.
Self-esteem. So your own self-esteem is going to predict whether, so less self-esteem means you use more. Okay. Anything else? Main one? That's the main one? Okay.
Yeah, that's what it said in the.
Then collective self-esteem, they have like subcategories, such as membership self-esteem, private collective self-esteem, public collective self-esteem, and importance to identity. And they found that the private collective self-esteem was one of the more significant ones.
Okay, so very nuanced kind of findings there. So, okay, very good. So what do you get out of this exercise? You get the, what do you think? It takes work? I think the big thing, big thing is sometimes I read stuff and I don't know the analyses because I haven't done it myself in terms of whatever the path analyses or whatever. One thing I look for is graphics, visuals. I look for p-values. So the important thing I look for in any kind of inferential statistic is p-values. So if I don't understand the statistics, okay, fine. But if I look at p-values, that's what I look for in graphs. Any kind of graphs where you can see, kind of like what our lips look like over there. To kind of give you some clues that you could probably identify to kind of tip you off on what it was. And then combine that with the actual, what they say in the abstract a little bit with the results, can kind of help you get to things a little bit more quicker and more easily. So I'll be seeing you next week, or I don't know when, a couple of weeks. I'll know, I'll be here. We can go over this more, but you're welcome to email me if you had a quick question about the certain article that you want to send forward to me and ask a specific question. I'm happy to answer that. But in the meanwhile, we're going to talk about infographics. So that was a little taste of working with an article. Literature review, yeah, you know how to do that. Okay. A fun way to end the evening was an infographic. So this is becoming a hot trend, I would say, in the last several years, the infographics. And it's not too hard to do. So here's some examples of some cool ones to depict, so these are interactive, these are things that catch people's eyes. You've probably seen stuff like this. These are more simple pictures, but where they just kind of talk about some things. What else do we have? Their council behaves. CDC maybe is a good one. I got the national. Here's some more infographics. So we've basically all seen infographics before, right? Any questions about that? No, not really. Infographics, and really, you can make some really nice ones, right? So the question is, that's probably in your job in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if you would find a use for you to make some of these yourself for your organization, whatever you work for, whoever you work for. It could attract an audience, or if you're doing fundraising, you might want to do something like this, or to further educate your population that you're serving, you might want to put together an infographic. So those are all of the above reasons why you might want to put an infographic together to better educate or influence or whatever it is. And so John is so willing, I kind of voluntold him to, I've done some infographics before, but I'm a little rusty. So John is going to just show you an example of how to go about doing this, an example of a software you could use as PictoChart. How many of you have done an infographic before? Well, a couple of you have. Easy, hard, fun, not fun? Fun?
I think you would talk to, choose the information and try to condense it in one sheet.
Yeah.
So the important thing is to get the most important point across, right?
Yeah.
It's not meant to be loaded.
So
It's not meant to be loaded with information, that's for sure.
So PictoChart is free. They do have a paid option, that to make your infographics very colorful, but we're just doing something basic right now. So what's a good example? So on the left side, there's, typically vertical bars, line graphs, pie charts. In public health, and when we use SPSS, normally we deal with mainly pie charts, bar graphs, and histograms. So it may be different for you guys, maybe a circle graph. There's different ones to represent your data, so it's all up to you. What would be a good one, Michelle?
Oh, you could do the one that looks like a bracelet. I feel like that's more common.
Okay, all right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. No.
I see that a lot more, I feel.
Okay. Let's see. So let's just say males, females. And let's just say, I'm trying to think of one. What do you think is a good topic that involves males and females?
Oh, that's like emails make twice the amount of mails.
Okay, I got to go on. I got one. Okay. Let's see. People, students in class. Student in class. So there's only 10% males, while there's 90% females. As represented in this classroom, there's only one male, one male student, and the rest are all females. So that's another. But let's just say you want to break it down by major. So you have public health, you have social work, and let's just say counseling. So public health is 10%. No, make it 30%. Social work, let's make it 50. And counseling, 20%. So it's really easy to do, honestly. When I had to do my project to graduate, I had to make so many comparison graphs. So one of them was a pie chart. Two of them were pie charts, and the other were, I don't know if you guys are going to cover it, pivot tables. So it looks unique, but you got to do it for your project. Let's see, what else? All right, a trend graph, right? So you've seen them in articles, right? So let's see. Wages. So let's just say, I'm gonna delete it. So for like wages, let's just say males, oops, not good at this. Males make, let's just say $15 an hour. Okay, then later on they increase to $17 an hour. Okay, so it increases. Females, let's say they start at 16. All of a sudden they go back down to 14. Okay, now do you see where it hits the middle? That's where the middle point is. I'm not really good at pictographs. I used to do this, but I haven't done this in a long time.
Is that what you do for your?
Yeah, so one of them was a pie chart. So mainly pie charts are used to represent race, ethnicity, and also gender. And a histogram for age. So you want to pick the right chart and right graph for the data you're presenting. So I'll give a last one. Okay. So so that's in Excel. A pivot table is basically it categorizes and organizes your data. So it's kind of complex to explain, but I have to show it. So yeah. Okay. Just say. Let's see. I'm gonna do something random. So. Come on. Okay, so if you have a bunch of these, let's just say for age, right? A bunch of lines. That's a good way to represent your data. But if you use a pie chart, you're not gonna have 8 or 9, different slices for age. Does that make sense? Or no? Yeah, I'm not good at this.
So for age, you're talking about age groups, right?
No, just age in general, because you're not gonna have 50 slices for each one.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because normally you use a histogram for that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm trying to tell the difference.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
For something continuous, I see.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. You use a bar chart for that.
Yeah.
Okay, but this just gives them an idea. It exists. It's there. Make it. You might have to do it for your graduate program. Maybe.
I have a question. How do you see it?
How do you save it? Okay, all right. So you enter the charts. You save.
What is that?
That's simple.
It gets saved in PictoChart, it's not
Yeah.
like you can export it to something else,
Oh,
right?
actually,
Unless you
can download it.
Oh,
Yeah.
as a PMP or PDF, okay, perfect.
what's up?
So if I were to upload like it says import on there, if I were to import an Excel sheet with over 1,000 responses, is there like a way I can just highlight what I need?
Yeah.
To create the chart?
Yeah, so, you know, if you're trying to publish like a poster, you know, trying to advocate, for whatever, yeah, you can do that.
Is this free?
It's free to a certain extent.
It's like limited,
Yeah,
you know, things you can do. Yeah,
so watch, I'll show
and
you.
there's several others, there's Canva, PictoChart, a couple others.
So I'll go back to the charts and you can import it, you can import your own data. So it's good. You can play around with it. It's really nice.
Yeah,
And then you said, you just said a little bit more about it's like pie chart and histogram and the difference between those, like what would you said continuous and
So for histogram, it's used for continuous data, like for age. That's usually what, you know, you would use it for. Pie charts, it's like 3 or 4 categories, yeah.
Just, you know, like when you think of categorical variables versus continuous variables would lend itself more to a bar chart. Categorical variables is more easy to be a pie chart, I would say.
Yeah.
All right. I think we out of here. I say so.